In this video, I'll talk about the Dolphins signing wide receiver Jaylen Waddle to a 3-year contract extension and what it means for the Miami Dolphins going forward here on the Matt Newton Football Show. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Matt Newton Football Show. I'm your host, Matt, and let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins signed Jaylen Waddle to a 3-year, $84.75 million contract extension, and that'll lock Jaylen Waddle up until the 2028 season. The deal also includes $76 million in guaranteed money. And if you compare his contract to Devontae Smith's contract, who also got a 3-year extension, being in the same draft class that Jaylen Waddle was in, he got 3 years, $75 million with $51 million guaranteed. So Jaylen Waddle got a sizable amount more guaranteed money than Devontae Smith. But that's what happens when you do business a little bit later. The people who comes afterwards, they get more money in their contract. So Jaylen Waddle was expected to probably get a little bit more than Devontae Smith, but he got a significant jump, a $5 million jump in guaranteed money compared to Devontae Smith. And Jaylen Waddle's had production on the field. He's had 3 1,000-yard seasons so far in his career, so he definitely started out on the right track. And he has a great rapport with Tua that we've seen both at Alabama and, of course, here with the Miami Dolphins. So locking up Jaylen Waddle was a priority for Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel, and they definitely put their money where their mouth is. Now, to put it plainly, Jaylen Waddle is worth it. Speed kills in the NFL, and you can't teach speed. And when you get the kind of speed the Miami Dolphins have, between Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle playing the wide receiver positions, you have to be able to pay for the type of electricity that Jaylen Waddle gives on the field. And, when you watch his highlights, you watch how he's able to take short passes and go for long gains, the way he's able to break tackles and extend the yards after the catch, the way he's able to catch long passes over behind, taking the top off the defense. Jaylen Waddle is worth what the Dolphins are paying him. And over the course of the 5-year contract, when you include his 4th year and his 5th-year option that the Dolphins picked up, then when you talk about average annual value of the contract, Jaylen Waddle is really only making about $21 million a year. And I think that on the open market, Jaylen Waddle will get much more than that. So I think the Dolphins were very proactive in locking him up and also making sure that they are able to keep that wide receiver tandem, that Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle tandem, as long as Tua is the quarterback, because if they plan on extending Tua, and Tyreek Hill is also due some more money since his guaranteed money runs out after 2024, then it makes sense to keep this core together. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and Tua, they are the core of the offense, and they're kind of like together, they make this offense go. Mike McDaniel relies very heavily on the passing game, and Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are a very big part of that. Now, I'll go on the record and say that I had my doubts about whether Jaylen Waddle was going to be a top-flight wide receiver in the NFL. And while he's not exactly a number 1 wide receiver, he certainly is a very talented and elite 1B or number 2 wide receiver. And the fact that he's getting paid this much money reflects that. And, really, the Dolphins haven't had a lot of success drafting wide receivers in the first round. And most recently, they drafted guys like Ted Ginn Jr., who kind of profiled like Jaylen Waddle. He was a kick returner and punt returner in college. He was a speed guy, and he was often injured. So I wasn't really sure how well Jaylen Waddle would work in the NFL, especially after having that nightmare of Ted Ginn on the Miami Dolphins. But Jaylen Waddle has exceeded my expectations and probably that of all Dolphin fans. I mean, he is an elite wide receiver with an elite skill set. He knows how to get open. He gets in and out of his breaks. He's able to stretch the field. He's able to make yards after the catch. He has pretty reliable hands. He has occasional drops here and there. But he is a number 2, but number 1B kind of wide receiver, and that kind of talent, the Dolphins, were really lucky to not only get in the draft, but also be able to extend him and keep him on the team for the next 5 years. Now, if Jaylen Waddle wants to keep the level of production that he's kept so far in the early part of his career, he has to be able to stay on the field. Somehow, Jaylen Waddle has to get some of these smaller injuries he's had. He's had some core muscle problems. He's had some lower leg injuries and some soft tissue injuries. And these kind of things kind of plague your season. They allow you to miss games. The team obviously are relying on his production. So it's very important that Jaylen Waddle is able to stay on the field in the 2024 season, because they're really going to rely on his ability in order for them to get past the first round of the playoffs, which is something they haven't done again for 25 years. They haven't won a playoff game. So Jaylen Waddle has to be able to stay on the field, and Mike McDaniel has to do a better job of getting other guys the ball to take some pressure off of Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Tyreek Hill had 175 targets last season. That number should probably come down a little bit just to be able to keep him fresh and healthy at the end of the year. And the same thing goes for Jaylen Waddle. You have to be able to keep these guys fresh. You have to be able to run the ball to take pressure off of the wide receivers and Tua. And also you have to get other wide receivers involved, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr., whether it's Eric Ezukama, whether it's Braxton Berrios or River Craycraft or whoever the Dolphins feel can get additional targets to take the pressure of those two wide receivers. And Jaylen Waddle, if he can play 17 games in the regular season and not miss any time, then it bodes well for not just the Dolphins offense, but also for their ability to advance in the playoffs. And that's what really this is all about. It's really about getting the Dolphins past the first round of the playoffs, and getting talented core players is very important to achieve that. Hey guys, if you're liking this video, hit the like button below, and also click the subscribe button so you can get the latest content from the Matt Newton Football Show. Now, another great thing about this deal is that Chris Grier and the front office was able to lock Waddle up before Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb got new deals. And I guess you can probably throw T. Higgins in that group as well. By signing him before those guys, it keeps the price and the cost of signing a guy like Jaylen Waddle down. And I know that those guys are probably, outside of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb are the bona fide number one wide receivers on their teams. And that's not really the case in Miami with Jaylen Waddle. But still, when the average price of wide receivers go up, then franchising the players obviously to go up, the salaries that agents want to compete with one another and want to make sure their guys get paid as well. So those are the kind of things that when you make these kinds of moves and be proactive like Chris Grier and maybe even the salary cap guy, Brandon Shore, when you can get these guys under contract early and be proactive and not wait until, you're forced to either use a franchise tag or maybe put them on the trading block. This kind of proactivity to keep young budding talent is what helps great teams, become even greater, and allows them to build on that talent and get other talented people on the team, which will allow them to have more success down the road. And we're not just talking about 2024. We're talking about 25, 26, 27. These seasons, you want to be competitive if you're the Miami Dolphins or if you're fans of the Miami Dolphins. And to do that, you have to keep a very talented nucleus of players, and locking up Jaylen Waddle on the team, he can be one of those talented nucleus of players that the Dolphins can rely upon into the future. Now, what does Jaylen Waddle's contract mean to other players on the Miami Dolphins? And, the first player I'll talk about is Tua Tagovailoa. And everyone knows that he's due for a new contract. And by all reports, the Dolphins and Tua's people, his representatives, are actively working on a deal. But in terms of the other guys on the team who's probably due new contracts, guys like Javon Holland and such, I'm not really sure where the Dolphins will go when it comes to extending a guy like Javon Holland. Chris Grier has shown a propensity to sign players that play premium positions. I mean, the 5 positions that most teams covet, which is quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver, edge or pass rusher, whatever you want to call them, edge defender, defensive end. and also left tackle or blindside tackle, whether it's your left tackle if you're a right-handed quarterback, or right tackle, I guess, if you're a left-handed quarterback. But a blindside protector is also an elite and premium position. And Chris Greer has shown no hesitation to give up draft assets in order to get that. For Tyreek Hill, he's traded a bunch of picks and gave him a bunch of money. For Jaylen Waddle, they used not just one first-round pick. They traded down, got 2 first-round picks for Jaylen Waddle, then traded back up to get Jaylen Waddle with the 6th pick. So they actually used 2 first-round picks to get Jaylen Waddle, and they signed him to an extension. So that's a lot of money and resources they use to lock up Jaylen Waddle. Also, when you look at quarterback, obviously there was a whole tank for Tua thing. They pretty much threw away a whole season just to, get themselves a franchise quarterback. And as far as left tackle is concerned, they spent a lot of money in free agency to get a guy like Teron Armstead. They traded draft assets to get guys like Bradley Chubb. First round pick they traded, I believe, in addition to giving him a big contract. Jalen Phillips, they used a first round pick for him as well. So Chris Greer is always willing to pay to get talent at premium positions. Long ago, he also extended Javon Holland, probably a little bit past his prime, to get him under contract. They signed Jalen Ramsey to a big deal as well. So these are the kind of players that Chris Greer likes to build his teams around. And I think a lot of GMs kind of follow that mold. But when it comes to safety, like Javon Holland, a defensive tackle like Christian Wilkins, those guys will probably have to find another team to get paid. I'm not sure how much of a priority those positions are in terms of roster building, especially when it comes to using draft assets and salary cap space in order to retain those kinds of players. Guys like, Robert Hunt, who was a very good guard for the Miami Dolphins, very athletic and a rising kind of player in the eyes of many around the league. He was allowed to walk as a free agent and get paid elsewhere. So positions like guard, like Robert Hunt, defensive tackle like Christian Wilkins, and maybe even safety like Javon Holland, those may not be positions that Chris Greer is actively willing to invest in. Now, what does Jaylen Waddle's contract means in terms of Tyreek Hill? That I'm less clear about. Tyreek Hill is in the last year of guaranteed money that he has on his contract, and I think his contract after 2024, I think his cost against the cap balloons in 2025. So I don't think that the Dolphins are going to pay Tyreek Hill that number in 2025. And I'm sure Tyreek Hill is not happy about only having guaranteed money for 2024, especially after Jaylen Waddle received his new deal. As a matter of fact, Tyreek Hill posted a post on social media basically alluding to the fact that he's due some money. So clearly it's on his mind. Clearly it should be on his mind. He has to, basically get paid his worth, his value. And he's extremely valuable to this football team. The whole offense pretty much revolves around him. So in that regard, I do believe that the Dolphins will sign Tyreek Hill to an extension. How much and for how long, I'm not sure. But if I were to bet, I would say that they would like to extend him through 2028 as well, just to keep that combination together. Now, at that point, Tyreek Hill might be in 2026 and 2027. He might be in his age 32 and 33 seasons. By 2028, he could be age 34. And you really don't expect a number 1 wide receiver to be that old. But Tyreek Hill is a kind of a different kind of player. He has exceptional speed and quickness. I really don't see that diminishing anytime soon. But sometimes these guys, once they hit a certain age, they kind of hit a wall. So I'm not sure if Tyreek Hill is going to hit that wall. But what I do believe is that the Dolphins are going to take a chance, pay Tyreek Hill to be their number 1 wide receiver for as long as Waddle is there, probably until 2028. And if they can get Tua under contract for 2028, then you're talking about locking up the core of that passing game for the next 4 to 5 years. And I think the Dolphins believe if they can do that, that will give them the best chance to have success in those upcoming years. And if they were able to do that, And especially if they can get Tua at a reasonable number, then I think that bodes well for the future of the Miami Dolphins. Thanks for watching this video. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and comment to this video, and also share it with your friends. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.